Is it on go or is it on three or is it on one?
Problematic.
I'm Marquise.
Problematic. Problematic. Cookout podcast. Yeah, Sito in the building. Problematic.
It's your boy Juju.
Problematic. Cookout podcast. Problematic.
Yo, what did my man just say then?
Problematic.
Yo, you're listening to Mr. Rock.
Problematic. Cookout podcast.
Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Cookout. As always, your boy Juju in the house.
It's your boy Marquise.
Sito in the building.
Mr. Rock right here.
And we are the Problematic Cookout. We are happy to be here, back at it again with another episode. We are bringing a different spice to today's episode as we are going to address an issue that has brought a lot of controversy to our world recently. And that is the Black Lives Matter topic and the discussion around systemic racism. As for Black men, this conversation impacts us one way or another. And as a group, we want to promote positivity, love, progress, and equality. I anticipate today's conversation to get a little spicy, a little feisty, but we'll try to keep it educational. So without further ado, let's fire up the grill, people. And I guess my first question, we'll go right into it. And just to ask all of you guys, when you guys hear that famous slogan, which goes Black Lives Matter, what comes to mind to you guys? What do you guys hear?
Ooh, man, that's an interesting one. It always starts off with a sense of pride for me because I'm like, Black Lives, because I feel like we're in the spotlight and never in the spotlight at the same time. Like, we're like, oh yeah, you guys are important, but it's like not really that important. In showbiz, celebrities, blah blah blah. But then when it comes to like the underlying picture, it's like, all right, this is just like the trend of the times. And for me, it's the second thought after the pride is more like, what is the other person thinking about this, right? You get the obvious people that are very supportive. They got your back. You know how they feel about it. They vocalize their stuff, whether it's through social media, and voice their opinions and stuff. Some even go and join in on the protesting on your behalf. You ain't even in the protest; they're protesting for you, and you're like, yeah, that's great. And then you have the other people that I feel like there's like three subsets. There's the people that just like vehemently hate Black Lives Matter and they're with the All Lives Matter, whatever. And then there's people in between that are like, why is this like as big as it is? I had a friend, she's like, oh, this, like, I feel like Antifa's infiltrating it and making it not what it's supposed to be, and conspiracies and stuff. So at first it's pride, then it goes into concern and like consequence after that.
Yeah. Me personally, I love chanting it. Like if I go to a protest, if I'm out and about and I'm with people that respect that, just having those words, like Sido was saying, it's the pride side of it. Just making people know and understand. The same things that we've believed within ourselves is getting it out there and letting other people know that you need to understand what's going on, and it highlights things that are going on in the world. So it's a good tool for seeing people for who they really are, that are non-Black. To see if they associate with it and they're moving with it, or if they're against it, or if they've got questions about it. It just opens up a lot of conversations, sometimes negative, sometimes positive. But we all want to try and steer that into the positive light because that's what it's about.
For sure.
Marquise?
Yeah, but honestly, for me, I feel like it's more of an eye-opening educational thing. In my opinion, like, I guess some of us feel kind of like a disconnect from all that. They feel like, oh, this doesn't really affect me, so why should I care about it? But now this is more of like an eye-opener. Like, this is a real problem. There's a lot of people who feel a certain way about this, and something needs to be done. And that's why that voice is pretty key to have people from all races coming together and saying, you know what, this is actually a problem, and we really need to do something about it. Um, and for those who actually don't even know what's going on, I feel like this is an avenue for them to actually
Yeah.
know, or get a chance to to see what the world is really like. You know, you can't live in that little sheltered bubble forever. Like, some people are actually suffering out there, and you know, there's something all of us can do about it. But the
Yeah.
first step is obviously is getting educated about it, obviously. So I
No,
think
for
it's a
sure,
good thing
man.
that we have this thing going on. So
Yeah, and I really like that. But there's a couple things that you guys touched on that really came to mind, because Sido, you spoke a little bit about the entertainment aspect, and it is definitely eye opening to see how people will praise the culture, or will love the entertainment aspect of it, but
Mhm.
on the flip side, not be a huge fan of when real life issues are impacting us. And I guess for me, when I hear Black Lives Matter, um, it's a little bit of a difficult conversation for me to have, because although I do believe to the core of it, Black Lives Matter, and I think that we should do a whole different episode about the Black Lives Matter organization, right? I think, because
Yeah.
I think that's almost like a
Yeah.
completely different um, topic in itself. But when I do hear Black Lives Matter or BLM or whatever, like I believe, as a Black man, I want Black lives to matter, right? Like, I believe that, and of course I believe all lives matter. Nobody said anything against that, but I do want the best for the Black community. But when I do look at that, um, at some of the things that are being fought for, or that people are fighting, I'm just like, I don't know if that's exactly, if you're really telling me that Black Lives Matter in the way, or what you're fighting for exactly. So that's why I want to bring up to you guys, and a little bit, when Marquise, he said, oh, people out there, people are suffering, people are having, what what is the biggest issue that we as a community face right now? What is the biggest issue that Black people face out there, in you guys' opinion?
I mean, I'd say
that's
it's yeah. Go for it.
yeah, nowhere. Um, I would say I think the major thing, or the major thing I think Black people are kind of faced with, is just the negative perceptions of who they are as a people, or just who they are as individuals. Um, I feel like if you hear something about a certain group of people, and like you hear it all the time from someone else, or multiple people, it kind of becomes a way of thinking for you, because then you also automatically associate that group of people with these other
Mhm.
things that you've heard about them. So
Mhm.
I think that's like the main problem. Like, and I feel like that's kind of where people need to start attacking this from. You know?
Yeah, for me, it's a bit of you know the socioeconomic racism that causes mass discrimination that just kind of keeps people in the same like boat. Me growing up in America, luckily my parents are immigrants, so it's not like I'm born American Black, or I'm
For
like
sure, for
several
sure.
generations Black who grew up in like the projects and stuff. And at the same time, the people that I grew up in my neighborhood, not necessarily that they're not doing bad, but at the same time, I don't feel that they're as disciplined. I don't even really want to say that, but it's a mix of, because of the situation you're in. Like, if you're living in crap and you don't realize that you're living in a bad situation, you're going to accept the bad situation as normal, and the opportunities are going to go by you because you don't even realize what's good and bad.
Hmm.
And as a Black person navigating in the world, I'm usually in a place, well, this has happened to me several times, where I'm like the only Black person in the room, right? Or I'm the
Yeah.
only Black person in an area or something. And the first thing I try to do is look at if there's any other Black people in the place first.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
all right, if there's one guy, I'm like, all right, this ain't so dicey. And then if I don't see that, then I'm like, all right, I got to be on my P's and Q's, head on the swivel, real polite, real respectful. all this extra work just to, make sure that the people around me just don't disregard, like they could just completely disregard me if they want, or they could, have a chat with me and have a good time. That is exhausting in and of itself.
For sure. No, I
Yeah.
like that. And like before I bring it up to you. I really love that, because I think that one thing that is often forgot is obviously we can bring out all the stats, the numbers, the all of that. But there's real life experiences out there, right?
Yep.
And there's things that we have to feel and live with every day. That a lot of people don't have to, that you just can't understand if you're on the other side, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
unfortunate, and we don't even expect you to fully understand, but just to have like a little bit of compassion, I guess. But yeah, no, Rock, like you were gonna say something.
Yeah, I think the compassion thing. I think it's just time for people to really step out of their comfort zone and start to listen, and take the time out to hear other people's backgrounds, hear the history of your ancestors, our ancestors, all the things that have happened in the world to put us in the situation that the world's in right now. So from school days, I never really learned anything about Black history from school. I'm from UK.
Sure.
Everything was about the Romans and the Vikings and the Saxons, and nothing was related to who I was as a person. There was no color in the book.
Did it talk about how they colonized like half the world?
Yeah, there was information about that, but it just got to a point where I was like, well, this doesn't relate to me.
Oh, okay.
It relates to England.
Word.
I was born and raised in England.
Yeah.
But, where are my ancestors? Where are my family from? How come, the West Indies is where it is? How did my people get there? None of that was taught, and it took a while for me to really get involved in understanding my history, the American history, for African Americans compared to, Afro-Caribbeans as we're called. They're similar, but they're different at the same time. There's different experiences that, my ancestors and my family have, worked off the back of compared to, the state of the way the US is. So it's different types of things. So having other people and other backgrounds and ethnicities understand the history, because they just think, oh, it's the Caribbean. Oh yeah, it's a nice place. Everyone's laid back and da. But they don't know the history of what the slave owners and the slave masters from the UK, what they did to the people there, and why people were in that situation there. You might go there and there's so many, Black people there, but then what happened to the people that were there owning the people, running the land and taking it what it was? And where's that money gone now? So it's just things like that. It's really it'd be great if people would like open up a conversation with me, because there's so much that I need to learn as well.
Yep.
And I'm constantly learning. I speak to my cousins, my other family members and whatnot, to find out what they know, and they share a lot of information with me. And this is the information that I want to share with others, because the situation of our people has been based on things that have happened in the past. And you got African Americans, you got the Afro-Caribbeans, you got people in South America, you got people all around the world that have been impacted from the history of slavery, and also it's the relation back to the motherland of Africa.
Yeah.
How does that work? How does that relate? And having those interactions with people back there. But I think one of the main, like I'm just going into it a bit deep, but the main thing is the history, to understand why do you have what you have and why I'm in the position that I'm in. Even though we push to gain and develop and build, but there's certain obstacles and certain platforms that weren't put in front of us that are in front of other people, other races.
Yeah.
And I think that's an understanding that people need to really, get to grips with.
Yeah, that in itself is pretty rough too, because if you're Black, you basically don't have any I think Black people are like one of the last set of Black people to even start publishing anything. It's like if you think about how history was recorded, obviously history is written by the victors, blah blah blah, but like those people have been writing those things down. Like before the printing press, someone was like writing it. It was verified by a group of people as fact, and then that is now in the history books, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, since black people were enslaved for all these times, whether you were coming from Africa, if you were in Africa, you had tribes, so they had the griot, as I come to understand it, who would tell the stories of the previous tribes,
The
and
oral history.
the oral history, right? But
Yeah.
none of that is like written down and cited, so other
No.
people
Yeah.
could, you know, refer to it. And then everywhere else that there was black people, there were slaves, and they could not read or write, or were not allowed to read and write to like document that stuff. So it's like, how do I even go that far back to prove to you that XYZ happened?
Yeah.
And like that's a big downfall of the black community worldwide, unfortunately.
Mhm.
That, you know, I'm hoping is definitely looked upon a little better and resolved a little faster, just so we can be like, look, this happened because of this XYZ. It's so easy to do that with, you know, BC and AD and all that stuff, all those books from back then, and tablets and scriptures and
Mhm.
Bible.
Mhm.
It's like, how does that go back like 4,000 years and so on and
For
so
sure.
forth? You go to China, China probably has stuff that goes further back. Japan, same thing.
Exactly.
All right. Even
By design, isn't it?
yeah, the Middle East, they definitely got stuff, and then it's just like
Yeah.
black people. It's like
Yeah.
we did not get that down correctly in time.
That's wild. That's
Yeah,
wild.
and I'll just touch on that just a little bit in terms of like the family tree, you know, looking at your background and, you know, your surname, what does your surname relate to? You know, I've got two sides. I've got, you know, I'm not going to say my mom's and parents and my dad's names, but one has an African name.
Oh, word?
That we can relate back. The other side doesn't have that.
Mhm.
And it's like there's a struggle to be like, okay, so where did our people come from? Because if we can trace back to a certain period and then it's gone, it's lost. But you ask somebody in the middle of New York, a white guy, he can say, yeah, I'm from Ireland. My family are from this particular part of Ireland, and they can reach back, you know.
Yep.
Whereas, and I think that connection to, you know, have people understand, okay, your surname is this, but it doesn't really relate to who your ancestors are.
Mhm.
And I think that might be a useful place for people to start, you know, thinking and communicate. I, a lot of the times do, you know, discuss that element of it, because it kind of puts people in the picture to kind of start, you know, thinking deeper as to, you know, what the background of certain things are, and, you know, the roles that people played in history. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess like my question would be like, how do you guys think, and I would say that I have a little bit of an answer, but how do you guys think that relates to the challenges that we face today? Because, you know, for a lot of people, the argument may be like, well, that was then, you know, things have changed dramatically, you know, till today. And just to, I guess, like to play devil's advocate a little bit.
yeah, there's many things that I would say that we still fight for today within ourselves in terms of things that we need to build and develop. You know, certain fears that we might have about being in certain environments and saying certain things. You know, these fears and these thoughts are inbred. So from slavery days and, you know, going through the days that we're, you know, 10, 20 years ago in terms of where black people stood in society or whatnot, you know, you had a different idea of something, you could get lynched, you could get beat down, you can get shot. And there's still
Prevalent,
elements
yeah.
of that
Mhm.
here today, you know, to the point where sometimes you might feel like, you know what, I should say something. And the other part of me is like, yo, maybe I should just shut my mouth right now.
Yeah.
Maybe that let me just take a seat and just, you know, be happy that I'm in this position. And then there's other side of you inside of like, you know, I just want to wild out and just say what I want to say. And
But
you
that's
take it
that's
and
so
understand
messed
it.
up, like psychologically.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
having the feeling that you have to like be like, oh, let me just shut up, and you know,
Yeah.
like
Happens to me
just-
all the time.
Yeah, but you know, that brings back to, and we can say whatever we want, but you know, a couple of years ago when we had that incident where, you know, a news anchor decided to tell a professional athlete that he should shut up and dribble.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Classic.
it's just like, that's a little bit what you're saying right now. It's like, oh, you know, you don't get a say because
Mhm.
but they won't say that it's because of the color of your skin, right? They'll say like, oh, it's
Exactly.
because you're not a politician, you're not this, you're not that, and that's almost has been now ingrained in how we grew up, how we live our lives, right? Where it's like, oh no, like in certain situations, like they get to say what they need to say, but I need to shut up because I need to make a good impression as the black person.
Well, I think it's a little flipped on this at this rate, because now we're at a time where anyone could say something out of line and they're definitely getting fired, right? Like the shut up and dribble, no, because it's, even though it's that's a racist comment, it's offensive, it's still PC. But someone could tweet something bad and it's like, all right, well, you're gonna get fired. Like if you say anything like anti-Semitic, for example, you're done. Like Buchanan just got cut. Like, so if you have the backing and you're not afraid of the consequence to exercise restraint, which I feel like everyone else doesn't have, really, that's where you really have to like play your cards and pick your cards, right? Like you should have some kind of backing before you open your mouth and say something. Obviously, the person who the shut up and dribble comment has a bunch of supporters. The news anchors support them. She probably does a decent job as a journalist. I don't really know her too well, but
yeah, she's trash.
I
gotta say, it's one time.
But someone hasn't like challenged her livelihood for her views, where that'll happen way quicker if you say it anywhere else, right? Like
for sure.
Like anything anti-Semitic, you say something anti-Muslim, like those things, you're gonna get attacked by not even by the people of that like minority that's getting affected. You're gonna get cut by other majority people. Like,
so there's a question that comes out of that. Sorry, do you?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a question that came out of that. Now, I'm from the 80s. Oh, the 70s really, but yeah.
Man, why you had to age yourself on there, Mr. Rock? Is that why you call Mr.
Man, let's not lie to these people.
That's why I gotta be called Mr.
Mr. Rock.
Mr. Rock.
But yeah, from the 80s and 90s, there was hardcore, straight up in your face hip hop that used to talk about, history and tell you exactly how it is, and it was, for a good while, that had a lot of people captured, and really felt the pride of being black and knowing the history and knowing, the impact and the struggles that we've been through or whatnot. And then you've seen over the years how things have been washed out to the point that a lot of hip hop now is you not learning anything. The amount of things that I learned from Ice Cube, Public Enemy, EPMD, all those artists, there's few artists like that nowadays. In the mainstream, I should say. You can go out and look for it, but it's not like straight, in your face kind of thing. So I just feel there is a need to, make sure that we, give the people their flowers and, and celebrate people in society that are bringing things to the table, and just not allow, one person to get up on stage and just say whatever they want about, one of our greats and, just get away with it. I'm not saying we need to, attack her back, but we just need to highlight the positives that person's brought to the table and just make it be known, and use that negativity as a platform to grow the positivity of.
Yeah.
But I guess that kind of just comes into the education piece then, right? Like people need to be educated that, this stuff is what's going on, and you have the right to kind of like, speak out against it.
Well, I guess like just to kind of move from that a little bit, is that one thing that I find interesting about all of this is that at no point did I hear from any of you guys, that one of the issues that is facing, that we're facing is this, police brutality, which in my opinion, when we speak about And that's where, you know, like I'm ready for all the smoke that's going to come with this this comment right now. But
Mhm.
like I think that that's such a minuscule part of the issue that, you know, the black community actually faces, right?
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and I just want to talk about it for a second, speak
Mhm.
about, um you know, from you guys' perspective. Like, if I look at the numbers, right, and I look at, I'm not going to say that, you know, there's no issue, we're fine, you know, we
Yeah.
have,
Absolutely not.
because we have a lot of opportunities. I'm not going to pretend we don't, but I'm also, you know, not going to say that there's not any issues. But when I look at the issue of police brutality, which I think is, by the media, it's just overdone. You know, they throw it in your face and all of that. Like, I'll give you guys a chance to speak about it. But if we look at the numbers, you know, 2019, I think that the number was what, that there's like 9 people that died of being shot by a police, unarmed black men that died of being shot by a police officer. Now I know that that doesn't account for people that died at the hands of a police officer that weren't shot per se,
Mhm.
or you know, all other acts of police brutality that didn't end up in the death of a black man. So I get that aspect, but then I look on the flip side, you know, and I look at a city like Chicago, where this year, Memorial Day weekend, you know, there was what, something like 67, you know, homicides in one weekend, one city. Now, when I hear those things, like, I know everyone's going to tell me like, oh yeah, white people kill white people as well. The percentages are the same. And for me, I'm like, I don't really care. I don't really care about, you know, for me, it's not a good enough argument if you tell me like, oh, if I tell you like these people are dying, and you tell me like, well, these people are dying, like are dying as well. It's not a good excuse. Like, not, I shouldn't say I don't care. That's not what I meant. But it's not a good enough excuse for me. If you're going to tell me that Black Lives Matter, and there's, you know, 60, 70 people dying in one weekend in one city, in my opinion, like, you know, that's an issue we should attack. Now, that issue is a lot deeper than just the surface of like telling black people stop shooting yourselves, like
Mhm.
stop shooting each other. But a little bit for me, the point is still a little bit like, yo, like, like, folks, like, we can't be like out there marching that like the police is killing us, and then we turn around and we kill our own brothers and sisters. Like we got to be better. There has to be
Mhm.
some accountability. But like, you know, want to hear from you guys about this as well.
Yeah. That one's a pretty touchy subject, but my thoughts on it are, the first, in terms of the crime. If you're talking about black on black crime,
Mm-hmm.
why do black people have to be in the most perfect of light to not have uh police brutalize us more often than anyone else, right?
Mhm.
It's like we have to do so much to try and be in the best light we could possibly be before we're in a bad situation that is not of our own volition, in order to, for somebody to sympathize with us, right? Like, there was the guy who got shot 7 times and survived. I forgot his name. Um,
Jacob Blake.
Jacob Blake. There you go. He's in the hospital. Does he look like the most ideal black person to get shot
Mm-hmm.
7 times in the back? Not really. So then people are automatically like, well, he's not that great of a person anyway. But it's like,
For sure.
why do we have to be this perfect, like, Martin Luther King Jr., Obama type person just so we don't get attacked more than the rest, right? That's my first part, right? The second part, when you look at a city like Chicago, um, the thing with Chicago, since they got ruined with gangs from a long time ago, the strategies that police are trying to, use to police these communities better, ideally aren't working good, and then the gangs are definitely doing more rebellious, anarchist kind of things just to keep their status quo, right? I don't know what the gang's agenda is.
But
I
how are
don't
we gonna
live in
blame
Chicago.
that on how are we
No,
gonna
no,
blame that on police?
I'm not blaming that on police. I'm
It's a
not blaming that on
system.
police. But the thing is, there in Chicago, in the South Side of Chicago, there are virtually no social programs to get people away from the gangs to not be in those things. There's virtually because like I know somebody who had like a soup kitchen or something like that, and nobody messes with the soup kitchen. That's like Switzerland in Chicago, right? No one messes with it. People go there, get a good meal, and and the person is black, and they taking care of the community, so no one's like messing with them, right? So these gangs are killing each other because this person stole from this or this person's envious of that, and there's no social programs, or they've tried and they fail or they lose funding that are trying to just keep these people occupied so they don't do bad stuff like that, right? And like I said, if you live in a crappy situation, you're going to stay in a crappy situation. You're not going to see whatever opportunity. And then if you want to take yourself out of it, you need some kind of helping hand, either with social program or somebody to at least try to pull you out of there, to be like, yo, blah blah, you got to do like this and that, some kind of mentorship, so that way you don't go down the wrong path and start doing the crime. Because these gangs, they look at you like, oh, if I give you a gun and the police is pulling you over for a bad taillight because you probably have a crappy car anyway, you're gonna try and run away because you got the gun. And if you lose the gun, the gang leader is gonna kill you anyway because you just lost the gun that he's gonna take forever to get back to the police. So if you are a little foot soldier in the gang and you have this in your mind, what makes you think you're not gonna retaliate against the police? Because you're gonna lose everything anyway. Once the police pull you over for your taillight, find you have a gun in the car, and let's say no brutality in the situation, they arrest you, they seize the gun, you're doing time for not having the license to carry, whatever the case is. When you get out, that OG's gonna be like, where's my gun at? And then he's gonna clap you. So you're just like, I'm gonna die anyway because of this situation.
But that's my whole point, and that's my
extreme.
issue. But that's my whole point, and that's my issue, because you keep in mind that, like, I grew up in that world, so like I'm very aware of it. But when I look at it, so there's two things to this conversation. When you spoke about black people having to be perfect in order to not get shot or brutalized by police officers.
Yeah.
One thing I want to make clear is that I'm not saying that police brutality isn't an issue. That's definitely not what I'm saying, because I definitely think that it is an issue. In some instances, I definitely believe that it's just a reflection of one police officer, an individual police officer's doing a really poor job instead of just law enforcement being bad. Now, there's not enough repercussions to when those things happen. That's a little bit of the issue that we're speaking about. But I just think that it's so amplified, because when there's one instance that does happen, right, it makes every single news outlet, social media and whatnot, while the hundreds and thousands of there was just a little traffic stop the other day in Brampton when I was driving home. I went out with my cousin downtown, and we're driving home, and police officer, they were pulling over every single car, pulled me over, and asked if I had anything to drink that night. I said no, and he was like, have a great night. But that won't make the news, right? Because you see, that doesn't sell the papers.
Yeah, there's so many levels to this. So many levels.
It's deep.
I'll just point on two aspects of this. One will be police, and another one will be education and wealth, right? So the police elements of it, the things that we're seeing on the TV, okay, that have been caught on camera or we're hearing about, right? Just imagine how effed up this has been before all this was being caught on camera, and still to this day,
for sure, in
the dark of the night, the ish that they're doing, and the portrayal of it when it hits the news headlines, and people are getting away with this, or they paint the picture of this person to the viewer that is non-black. It's still creating the lack of worth. That person's worth, you know, they were a bad person, so they deserve to die, kind of thing. They don't say it as that, but the fact that they bringing up that person's background, oh, it was a scumbag or whatnot, you know. And realistically, he's a person, and the same people that are saying, you know, these words about this other person, they've probably done that in the past themselves. So, in terms of, you know, police were there to support communities and make sure, you know, people are doing the right things at the right time, and if you're not, then you suffer the consequences. They take it from that extreme to the point that they can go around and have a chip or have a you know, a feeling of, you know, they want to impose their power on people to feel powerful about something that they can say, you know what, you need to stop doing that now. If not, I'm going to shoot you, or I'm going to mishandle you. I'm going to mistreat you because I'm the law. Not the fact that they're, you know, following the law as it stands, the fact that they feel like they can go out and do whatever they feel. And then the portrayal of that to other people that look at that and see it in the streets, they feel like, he must have done something bad because police officers that we know act like this. But in different communities, they act totally different. So then it breeds, you know, different people's thoughts on how the black man is. So that's one side of it. When we come over to the education side of it, now, if you think about, you know, there's families where there's, you know, 3 or 4 children. I give an example, and it could be a 2-parent family at the same time, and the mom goes to work, the dad goes to work, low paid jobs. Mom goes to 1, 2, and maybe 3 jobs. Dad's doing all-nighters. When that child's growing up, the things that they look at are the TV or the people around them. The lack of resources in communities allow people to be like, oh, I'm on the street, there's nothing to do. The easiest thing to do is get caught up in some ish. Because it's free. You know? And then you see that, and then other people get, oh yeah, my man did this and da-da-da, it was funny and da-da-da-da. It goes from funny to being real, to being, you know, you're getting criminal records for this. But then as they see the people that go into jails and come back out, and then, you know, my man used to be this, da-da-da-da-da. The next person comes along, it's like he gets props when he comes out because he's real, you know? And people get caught up in that because it's something to look up to in terms of like a power. Because if you don't feel worthy of anything because nothing is put in front of you, or you haven't been enabled to get to that point, when you see power, you gravitate to it. It's like you join an organization, you see people who are your managers or, you know, the board or whatnot. Those are kind of things that you think to yourself, you know what, I want to aspire to that. And that's what you're looking up to. So if you don't see anything else around you, like business or people that are, you know, entrepreneurs or whatnot, that's where you're going to go, because you don't know anything different, because you don't see it. The only thing you see on TV that represents you is either music, comedy, some type of entertainment, sports, and that's it.
Yeah, but that's, in my opinion, that's the real issue that we're faced. Because when I grew up, like I said, like, I didn't grow up around my neighbors being, you know, the doctors, the lawyers, the marketing people, you know, teachers, not even just the big corporate job, but like just, you know, the little people that live a good life. Like, that's not what we grew up around. And like you said, like you turn on the TV and you see that life, which is either, you know, you're going to be a rapper or some kind of athlete, some kind of entertainer, or, you know, you have 2 options if you stay out here, which is, you know, seeing our parents work 2-3 jobs to put food on the table, or you see, you know, this other life, which is, you know, they all drive BMWs, they have the gold chains and all that. So you're like, well, what is it? Like, those are my options that I see around. But like, I guess that brings me the whole entertainment aspect. It brings me to another conversation. But Marquise, I want to hear from you. Like, you've been kind of sitting quiet here. I want to hear from you before I go to.
I'm just taking in what you're saying and trying to see what's good, because like I told y'all, this is like it's like an educational point for me, because like you know, I'm learning about this entire problem or issue that's happening, even though we already know about it. But realistically, man, like, half of the half the people out there really don't know what's going on. And now I'm taking any of these ideas, and I guess the first thing I'd say is, do y'all think it's a discipline problem then at the end of the day? Because if kids are, like you said, they're at home, they don't have they don't have the opportunities, don't have anything to kind of keep them from getting into that life. I feel like then it becomes maybe a discipline problem, but like they wouldn't.
It's a foundation thing. Here's another example.
Yeah, I think it's both sides, because if you don't have either both parents to look after this person or these people after they're working, or you don't have a social program to put them in, like after school basketball team, football team, or study group. It could be Bible study. It could be anything between like 4 o'clock and like 9 p.m. when the parents are back home. If you got nothing to do, you're gonna get caught up in some BS, right?
Fair.
So
then at this point, Sid, then dude, like, what can we do? Because it seems that this is obviously gonna keep happening. People, parents need to work. They need to provide for their kids, right? Like, and the kids are still gonna be stuck out there.
Yeah, and let's give it a second to speak about what we can do, because there's a segment that I want to do about the solutions and what we see, but I wanted to speak. We spoke about that whole entertainment life, right? And in my opinion, one of the biggest issue is that there's nothing wrong with the entertainers, the rappers, the ball players. I actually love that as an avenue for us to make something out of ourselves and to reach our goals. But right now we're really caught up in a big, where those entertainers have become social activists. One side of it is I love, because they really show us that they're more like, some of them say, I'm more than an athlete. I'm a person. There's a person here. I'm not superhuman. And it sends a message to our youth, to our kids of like, no, this is still a human being. There's a person behind there. But we're also caught in a whole lot of protests, especially in sports right now. I wondered, what do you guys think about those and the controversy that creates? That's something I'm curious to know.
Well, for these protests have to make you uncomfortable. That's the whole point of protest, right? You have to be uncomfortable. If you are uncomfortable, that means the protest is working. If you want it to stop, you should do something on your part to make it stop. Now, some people try to just end the protest and say, shut up and dribble. Some people try to actually join in on the protest. Like, what? It's like, you should be calling people like, what do I have to do so I could just see LeBron James dunk on somebody?
So
I could see Naomi Osaka, finish hitting that nice serve or whatever. What do I got to see my football team, like, just play football, right? Like, what do I have to do? Most of the time, they're just going to be like, just stop doing whatever you're doing. But that's the point of the protest. You have to be uncomfortable in some level.
Yeah, like if you're just saying like stop protesting instead of like being like, well, let's stop the problem. Why they're protesting? Like you kind of need to check yourself. I get the point.
It's not like we're protesting like, oh, McDonald's took the Big Mac off, put the Big Mac back on. We're not rioting because our sports team won for the first time and since the sport was created. It's a legitimate issue that some people face, that other people are aware of that they face, and those other people either decide to help or stop it. And you really need to look at what's happening and voice something. So it just takes a few people in the right places to say something to affect change. Once the change happens, and it's like, all right.
Because it's even like, with the NBA, when they had the protest and they set out the games and whatnot, people saying, oh, they should have set out longer and they shouldn't have, started back and this, that, and the other. But they played a part in terms of making people understand, or maybe making people know that something's going on. The fact that you tune in at a certain time to watch a game and it isn't playing, for you to not know, as a sports person, to not go and find out why they're not playing. Oh, Black Lives Matter. This has happened. at least it's opening the door to some people to think, yo, this must be really serious. Let me go find out some more information on that, you know? And things have, I think the NBA are very progressive in terms of, you know, what they're doing and what they have done.
Probably the most progressive sport out of all the sports right now.
Yeah. You know, followed by, you know, baseball is dead because, you know, in the past they've put down certain rules and things that have, you know, impacted other sports as well, especially, you know, players signing and moving around and having their own contracts and so on. But when it comes to the NFL, as much as I love seeing the game, I just, the whole NFL and what it's, the foundation of it makes me sick.
I agree. Yeah. My bad. Keep going.
You know, I have full respect for the players, the things that they do, the things that they have to do. You know, some of these players are on the field, and they're working. You know, the money that they bring in is probably just covering, you know, their mortgage or family bills and stuff like that. They're not all millionaires and so on, but the foundation that it stands on makes me ill.
Tell me more about that. I want to hear your.
Just want to interject real quick. I haven't looked at the NFL the same since they did Kaepernick the way they did Kaepernick.
And that's the thing, Sid.
Spoiled it.
That's the thing, Sid. Kaepernick's he's been protesting. He's been taking the knee.
Yep.
I just feel like back then people should have listened. And Rock, we'll come back to you, but like, I just want to say, now that NBA protested, all sports are kind of doing the part. I know football players like back in England and in Europe have they have the opportunity to wear the Black Lives Matter on their jerseys and stuff like that. I just want to know what's going to be different this time. Are people actually going to listen? Because Kaepernick started it and nobody listened. Is it still going to be the same effect? But we'll come back to that later. You can go ahead.
In terms of, you know, the NFL, the whole Kaepernick and people listening is because nothing kicked off. Nothing was, you know, he took a knee, a few other took a knee, and it's like, nah, you better stand up for this flag, or else you have a job. It's the same thing. You open your mouth, you're gonna suffer the consequences. And it's the same kind of thing that people are feeling in the day jobs normally.
For sure.
Same kind of ish, you know, but it's on the field. It's on a highlighted higher scale. Now they've all come back and all this stuff with Kansas City Chiefs, you know, these people linked arms, not even, you know, in front, not even during the national anthem, right?
Like nothing to do. Yeah.
And still were booed.
For sure.
Yeah.
They didn't even know why. It's just the fact, you want to unite with these, you know, these people.
Yeah.
So it goes deeper than it. You know, before they were talking about it's the flag and disrespecting the flag and
exactly.
Well, nothing to do with the flag, and now these people are showing themselves
still getting
who they really are.
Yeah. No, I mean that's for sure. Like and I'm one that has gone back and forth and really struggling as I go through my journey. And just like Mark, you said, like, man, it's educating yourself, you know, and I try to continue doing that. But it's tough because I think protesting is necessary. I understand we won't change, you know, one way or another. If you don't agree that change is needed, we're sitting here, we don't all agree on like what change is necessary, right? Or like the way change, but we all know that there needs to be change, right? And I struggle because I started from this place where I was like, you know, everyone should be taking a knee, to like, you know what, I like the fact that people are protesting, but I don't really agree with the anthem protest. But then I looked into it and you start thinking, you know, Colin Kaepernick, the reason he took a knee is because he wanted to respect the flag, right? Like it started because he had a conversation with a military veteran where they said, don't sit down. That's really disrespectful. Take a knee, because that's what we do when there's a fallen soldier and everything like that. And so he did that. He actually did that in respect to the military. So okay, people are still upset, and for me, when people were still upset, I was like, I get it. Like Colin Kaepernick, let's try something different. Let's try maybe protesting instead of using the 1 minute that there is to sing the national anthem. Like, how about we protest while we're supposed to do touchdown dances and doing this like that?
True.
But I still understand all of that. Now, when, like you said, when the Kansas City Chiefs event happened, that was for me the first like eye opener, because I can't remember the journalist that said it, but a couple of years ago he said it. If people came and took a knee and they said, we're taking a knee during the national anthem because we can't stand how our our military are being treated when they come back to country, they're not getting the right treatment, they're not getting this, so I'm not standing
Support the troops.
Yeah, people will be encouraging that, right? So the issue is more of like, why are people protesting more than it is the way they're protesting. And I think that the Kansas City Chiefs event proved that to another level of like, the issue isn't the way
people weren't even in the stadium and they're booing, bro.
It's like, it's the fact that you're protesting, and because we're saying like, no, black people, you guys have enough. You guys are already able to do this and this. You guys don't. You guys have enough. So please leave us alone. So that was my concern. But at the same time, I got really upset at the NBA, and some, I do a lot of work with some schools down in the US, and a lot of people were talking to me about like, oh, here's what we're planning on doing during the season. We're planning on having a patch. And in my opinion, I'm like, back to your point, Marquise, what are we doing? Like, we're past the awareness stage.
Yeah.
Like, what actions are like, we were like, the NBA, they were sitting out those games, but I was like, okay, well then at what point are you going to come back? Like, you started sitting out because one man got shot, but like, what do you guys want in order for you guys to be like, okay, cool, we've done it now, we're coming back? At what point are we going to end this because I don't see what even taking a knee, like, yes, it's creating awareness, it's creating tension, but what are we really doing with those types of protests?
You see things like that, taking a knee and banding arms together and stuff like that showed unity and the move forward. And then the other side of it was these people showing themselves for who they really are. And I'm always an advocate of people to tell me who you are. Don't be fake. If you're this, just let me know you're that, because I'm going to tell you who I am and stand up proud about it. If I need educating, then you educate me and make me a better person. So the same thing with that is, people need to, moving forward, I think right now people are being activated. There's many different things happening on the ground right now. Things are bubbling in organizations and companies, and these people in the NFL that now feel like, oh, we have to act like we're supporting and we're giving. Is it 200 million over next 100 million over next 10 years or something like that?
Something like that. Yeah.
That's pocket change to them. But those are the things that start the ball rolling, because then it's kind of like, well, this needs to happen, and then other people in organizations then come forward and say, well, I can do this and I can do that, which is outside of the NBA, and then it builds and makes things better. So I think initially, right now, things are probably seem quite quiet because everything's bubbling at the minute,
but I feel
it's enough yet.
Don't you think it's moving a little too slow, man? Because like, this stuff's been going on for years. We've been protesting for years. Like, how long is it going to take before people wake up? Yes, it's still bubbling, but I don't know. I feel like there has to be like a cap point where we just don't take, just be like, we're not taking this anymore.
See, but it's rough though, because a lot of people, I don't even think, as much as everyone booed like that event with the Chiefs, everyone's booing for different reasons that seem synonymous. So I don't even think they've completely shown who they are. They have to a point, but not, completely where you can really understand where they're coming from. Because in America, some of these places, literally the only thing they have to save the town is like the stadium, right? It's like that's their only form of happiness. That's their only their only point of relaxation to like meditate, whatever, watching the game, right? And this is me trying to sympathize with someone that is not liking the idea of everything, right? And it's very
Why sympathize? Sorry, Sid. Why sympathize?
No, I'm trying to sympathize, because like I'm trying to paint a picture here. Like, let's say, a cop loves football, used to play football in high school, college, got injured, had to join the force because his town only has like the fire department, police department. He decided to be a cop, and so he's been watching the football team of his town for the last like 20 years. He had to deal with a lot of crap while he was on the job. He's also getting attacked because of police brutality, so he's not even in the best limelight. And then he just wants to watch the football game, and then he sees more stuff against basically what he is as a person for the past like 30, 40 years, right? So of course that's going to tick some people off, and he's just going to lose his stuff and flip out about it. But I think with people like that, there needs to be a constructive conversation on how to reduce the stigma that we as minorities have, right? And there's definitely people that are just like outright completely racist and just like forget that. But I feel like there's a certain subgroup in that circle that could be talked to in a constructive manner if they're willing to have a conversation. If they're not, then there's no saving them. But out of that group, if you just get a few people to just change their perspective slightly, it could work out, at least in that town, in a better light. There was a guy, I forgot his name, I'll look it up, but there was a black guy who was said to infiltrate the KKK, and then he made like 300 KKK members leave the KKK just for like, yo, why are you like XYZ against black people? Like, look at me, I'm doing the same stuff as you, and we're just chilling and vibing. And he single-handedly turned 300 people. So there needs to be some people willing to talk on both sides. Because we're no better. If we see some crazy wild racist shit, we're just gonna bash that person like, yo, what the blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, if there's like some people willing to talk, so we could just be like, yo, XYZ, it's like you're not at fault here, but we need your help to correct it. But am I saying that's possible? I don't know. But if that happens, then that'll be like a good start for the change that needs for all of this to end.
I think there's a point that you'll get the questions like, oh, what can we do to help? And sometimes these people have to take the steps to go and figure it out for themselves to bring it to the table, because we're trying to help ourselves, we're trying to help our people, we're trying to help other communities and other backgrounds as well, and now we're going to help you to understand your environment, your background, and that's something that they need to take upon themselves to say, you know what, okay, here's a book, read that. It gives them the first step to even go on Amazon and see what other books are like that.
But to see, we do have to do that work, because it's so easy for them to just walk out of the situation. They can just be like, yo, I'm just gonna go back home and do whatever I gotta do. I don't have to do any of this stuff. So even though it's taxing on us to have to bring that part back, we still have to do that part, because if we can't even convince the one person who this doesn't affect at all, let's say Wall Street trader, he lives across the street from the exchange that he works at, brings in like $250,000. All he does is walk there, walk back, go to some fancy restaurant where there's like no imminent threat. If we can't talk to that guy about helping us out, who has the life he wants, who has the life he worked for, then we're SOL. Like, we're not gonna get any help that we need. So it's like we have to do that work on top of all the other stuff we're working on to help ourselves. Because
you
we
see that
I totally agree with that, but yo, we could be doing this like all day, honestly,
Yeah.
and keep talking about it. But quickly, I wanna ask you guys,
Mhm.
like, if I were to ask you, if I gave you that magic wand
Mhm.
that fixes it all, it's a deep-rooted issue, but like, what will be the solution? Like, each and every one of you, what do you guys see as like the solution? Like, how do we get out of this mess?
The silver bullet for me is to break the stigma that we have as Black people. There's a lot of really bad stereotypes that paint us in the bad light that were perpetrated in the past that just kind of feed into this engine of of Black people
Black is
today,
bad, yeah.
right? So like, if we could get rid of that stigma, like, let's say, gangs are gangs, but if you're not in the area where the gang is, then you're good, right? Every other Black person should be, A-okay. How do you know that they're not part of the gang? Well, you shouldn't just assume every person's part of the gang. I could be like, I could look at you as a white person, be part of KKK. Why would I do that, right? There's like 80% more white people in the world. I can't assume they're all bad, right?
For sure.
Just because you're wearing a hood and yada, 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 even though, but
yeah.
My silver bullet would be to get rid of the stigma
to break that stigma. Yeah,
we're bad. You can't say Black women are hoes and hoochie mamas and thoughts and whatnot. You can't say Black guys are thugs. You can't say Black kids are all just little. You can't say Bebe's kids. Like, all that stigma. If you could just throw it out the window, that will be a big part. That'll play a big role in fixing a lot of this, because now, the cop that pulls you over isn't going to be like, oh, well, he was just speeding. The kid that had a Nerf gun in class that got a freaking criminal record now, and he's like 7 years old, on the Zoom call, it will be like, oh, he just got distracted and he's playing with his toy.
Just like everybody else, yeah. But I think that starts with culture a little bit too. But you got a point. Now, I think you're definitely right. But I think that it definitely, our culture has something to do with it. But
I think for me, the magic wand is remove all the negative media about Black people. That's it. Just remove it.
Remove the negative media.
Yep, because that's what people feed off. It's the negative media. Like, you
say that louder for the people in the back.
Remove that negative media, man. As much as people get up in the club and dance to it. Sometimes I've been out to concerts and stuff, and I'm listening to the words that these people are chanting back.
Exactly.
I'm like, there's nothing positive in it. So why are you feeling good off this negative frequency? And it's the same thing, the same way people can be attracted to that negative energy, same way people can be put off from that negative energy because it's not anything for them to glorify. The media is the biggest killer of Black people.
Fair enough.
Ties a little bit into my stigma. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
Well, I think, in my opinion, I still stick to my original point. I think education is the key. Like, we need to have, education on both ends. As Black people, we need to educate ourselves and realize, there's certain paths we have, like, we can take, but like, we have to live our lives a certain way. I think we still have to stay within good morals, and then pass this down to the, the younger ones as they grow up. Like, that, in that sense, you don't end up with kids who have no other option in life but to join, gangs and do things like that. Like,
yes, sir.
At the end of the day, if that education's not there, we're all lost.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that every single one of you guys, like, a little bit of a point that I took away was like accountability. And I think that we're at the point where we need to understand that, like, yes, people always say like, oh, it comes from the people in power, but we have enough power to take accountability right now. We have enough power to, and it's going to come from us. So like you guys said, what's in the media, the education, we have the power to be able to do those things nowadays and be like, you know what, I'm not going to accept that this is the life. And for us, people that, you know, are no longer in that life, it's our job to now, like, let's create those businesses and go back and reinvest in our communities. Let's create Black neighborhoods, you know, Black successful neighborhoods,
Black social programs.
Exactly. Like, you know, it's on us. I think that we can keep screaming at, I'll say it. We can keep screaming at white people that like they need to care, they need to change all this, but you know, it's really on us. But at the end of the day, like if I were to leave everyone with a takeaway, I think that we in this world we all have our opinions, but we've drifted so far away from the fact that like understanding that our opinion doesn't mean that, you know, we can't live in this world together, and that not because our opinions are different because we voted for a different person or anything like that, that we can't show each other love and understand that, like, you know, we can live in this world together. We can share this planet and, you know, keep making strides together. And I think that it comes back to the point that we started with, is compassion. We just need to have compassion for one another, no matter, you know, where you're from, what you believe in, anything like that.
Regardless of the past.
Exactly. Like we just need to understand, you know, when someone dies at the hands of a law enforcement officer, you know, no matter what he did, like, it's a sad moment. You know, let's just have compassion and just realize that someone just lost their father, mother, brother, sister. You know what it is, like, let's just understand that, you know, no matter what they did, just like when anyone passes away. So we just need to exercise that a little bit more in the world. But like, we'll wrap this one up for today, man. This was an intense one. This was fun though. Like, it's, you know, these are real conversations that we need to have, and we need to be honest with each other. You know, we're not always going to think the same thing, believe the same thing, but this is good. But, you know, our chefs out there, thanks again for tuning in with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of that. Guys, this was another episode of the Problematic Cookout, and we're signing out. Peace.
Hey, y'all. Be good, y'all. Problematic.
I'm Marquise.
Problematic. Problematic. Cookout podcast. Here, Sito in the building. Problematic.
It's your boy Jude.
Problematic Cookout podcast. Problematic.
Yo, what did my man just say then?
Problematic.
Yo, you're listening to Mr. Rock.
Problematic Cookout podcast.